When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
You are listening to Women's Running Stories, where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences.
My name is Stephanie Diaz, and I am many things, but most importantly, a wife and a mother to two teenage girls. Also, I'm a run coach, yoga teacher, podcast host, and a joy seeker. That's who I am.
Yes, in this episode, you're going to hear the story of Stephanie Diaz, who is a wife, mom, running coach, yoga teacher, and podcast host. Stephanie hosts the Runners Roundtable podcast, which I definitely recommend. Stephanie is also the founder of Correr Running Retreats, and in addition to all of that, she is, of course, a very, very avid runner. But before you hear more from Stephanie, I do want to welcome you to Women's Running Stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am the host and producer of this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Now on to Stephanie's story. So yes, Stephanie Diaz runs a lot, and she has for many, many years. She has run over 200 races of various distances, and she's run all over the world. And included in the long list of races that Stephanie has completed, she has done one ultramarathon and over a dozen marathons, including her most recent marathon, which was the 2025 Chicago Marathon. And Stephanie has a long history with Chicago, which she will talk about in her story. So let's get into it. Stephanie shares the whole story of her running journey, which began in her adult years. And now here to tell that story is Stephanie Diaz.
Yeah, so I do not have an athletic background. I was actually one of those kids who did whatever I could in school, meaning I got the best grades possible so that I could take more honors classes and not have to do PE. I didn't like the presidential fitness test. I didn't even like running a mile. I did not like any of that. So growing up, running and we had no relationship. I saw my mom running. I could maybe count on my hands how many times I saw her running, and it was always within the context of losing weight. She had to lose weight, so then she would go to the park and run a few laps, and that's it. But it was never anything consistent, and it wasn't anything that looked particularly fun. It actually looked kind of dreadful. And then when I was in college, I would run on the treadmill every now and then just because I needed to move my body in some way. I didn't know what else to do in the gym. The weight room was intimidating, but a treadmill seemed like the easiest thing to approach. But even then, it didn't stick. It wasn't something that I enjoyed. It felt like just a chore to get on the treadmill. Then I had my daughters, and that's when my relationship with running really started. And I actually started running when my daughters were 2.5 years old and 6 months old. And that all came about because I was hyper aware of the fact that I had daughters and I wanted them to see movement, exercise, sweating as a part of life and not something that they did because they had to lose weight or not something that they did because they wanted to, fit in a particular outfit. I wanted them to know that being active was a lifestyle and something we did all the time. And running was also the easiest thing for me to do because I could just stick them in a stroller with all their toys and treats and snacks. And we could do it at any point in time in the day. At that point, I was a stay-at-home mom. So we would run at really odd times whenever I just couldn't handle being inside the house with them anymore. And we would go out and run. And I did a couch to 5K program. My very first 5K was in September of 2012. And I remember pushing the girls and feeling so proud of myself when I finished, and also feeling really connected to the people during that 5K, because as I ran with them, people would cheer me on. Other runners would say, "You're doing great, mama. You're so strong." All this positive messaging. So when I finished that 5K, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is incredible. I did that. My body was able to run 3.1 miles while pushing two kids in a stroller, while also getting cheered on and supported by my fellow runners. It was a really, I'd say, a pretty intoxicating feeling to feel that seen and like that celebrated, that I decided I wanted to try training for a half marathon. I had never ran a half marathon in my life. I mean, I was very new to running at this point, and I would still do a lot of my runs with the kids in the stroller, but I started meeting up with a group on Saturday mornings for the long run, and it was a Jeff Galloway group back then, the run walk method. And I ended up getting paired up with this woman who I call her one of my muses of running, because she was a woman, she had older kids. And I remember telling her, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can commit. My kids are young. My husband works a lot. And she she gave me just the biggest reality check. She was like, "I'm a mom and I have two kids too, and I'm doing this. So you can do it too. You have no excuse." And that was probably the best reality check I could have gotten, because I didn't realize it, that I was using my kids as an excuse to not do the big scary thing, right? Like, it's so easy to say, "Oh, I can't because of my kids, or because I have this, or because I have that," when really I was just terrified of stepping out of my comfort zone, of doing something that I knew would require a lot of sacrifice for not only myself but my family, right? I would be sacrificing Saturday mornings to go run with people, and that felt kind of selfish, even though I know it's not selfish, because running has since made me a better person. But at that time, I felt selfish, and just having that person tell me, "I'm a mom, I have two kids, and I'm doing this, so you can do it too," was also that permission to be okay with chasing my own running goals. So I always say that running started off for my daughters. I wanted them to see that being an active woman was just a part of life. And over the course of training for that first half marathon, I realized, wow, running is actually something for me. It's a place where I get to be me without having to think about anybody else's expectations as to who I should be. I was no longer Stephanie. I was no longer mom. I was no longer wife, friend. I wasn't any of that. I was just a human being that was running. And that's really what finally got me to enter into this like very committed, very, very committed relationship with running. I loved the process of training for a half marathon so much that I signed up for 3 half marathons, having never even done one.
Yeah.
I was, as a new runner, I was just drunk on the sport. I don't even know how else to describe it. I'm like, I've never ran a half marathon, and yet I thought it would be a good idea to run 3 half marathons within 6 weeks of each other, right? So, like, I really had no clue what I was doing. I just knew that I enjoyed the process of training. I enjoyed doing my runs with other people. I really enjoyed that. So, I actually ran my first half marathon, and I want everyone to know that I hit the wall so hard at mile 7.5 that I spent a mile walking, thinking about sitting on the corner and just waiting for the bus to pick me up. I thought I was never going to, I was like, this is awful. I don't want to run again. Why did I do this? I was struggling so bad for an entire mile. And what actually kept me moving forward was thinking about my kids and thinking about my husband and thinking about all those Saturdays that they sacrificed, all the Friday nights that they sacrificed. That's what got me through that wall, was just thinking about, hey, my family has sacrificed so much for me to be able to be here. The bare minimum that I can give them is a medal at the end of the day. And that helped me. I restarted running at 8.5 miles, and I was like, you know what? We're just moving forward. That's all we need to do. We're just moving forward. And when I crossed the finish line, I cried. And to this day, when it's a half marathon or a marathon, I always cry at the finish line. I cry because I'm like, I can't believe I did it. Even though, I lived through it. I knew it was happening. And yet there's still this moment of astonishment that I was able to cross the finish line. So that first half marathon, I'm crying as I cross the finish line. And I'm like, this was awesome. I can't wait to do it again. So I ran the other 2 half marathons. I completed it, 3 half marathons in 6 weeks. And a week after that final half marathon, I went for a run and my IT band flared up. It was so bad. I could not even run 10 feet. And I walked back home, was incredibly frustrated because I'm like, wait, I just did this amazing thing. I ran 3 half marathons. I love running. I want to run all the time, everywhere, anywhere. And IT band flared up. Now, this is 2013. So the internet and resources were not as abundant as they are now. So I did a quick Google search, this part of my body hurts. I'm a runner. What is it? And it said IT band syndrome. Takes 6 weeks off. And I said, crap, okay, now I have to take 6 weeks off. And I guess that's what I need to do in order to get back to running. So it was actually in that 6-week period of taking a break from running that I started practicing yoga, and I fell in love with yoga. It felt like I got a runner's high from yoga. So I end up healing from IT band. I continue practicing yoga, and we find out in 2013 that we'll be moving to Chicago for a year for my husband's job. And I had not wanted to run a marathon. I was completely against it. I was and still am one of those people that says I do not like running 26.2 miles. Like, I don't like driving it. I don't like the idea of actually doing it, is one that it's so hard for me to wrap my head around. And yet I do it. So and that's just the realization I had this year, where it's like, it's the environment of a marathon. That's what I love, being around other people who, being around thousands, hundreds of other people that are doing the marathon. That's what I love. It's the actual 26.2 is really challenging, and the training for it is even more challenging. But at that point, I didn't want to run a marathon. So we're talking about summer of 2013, and everyone around me said, but you've ran 3 half marathons. And for some reason, that was kind of the number of, if you've done 3 to 5 half marathons, you're ready to run a marathon. I don't even know where it came from, but I was like, I don't think so. Like, doing 26.2 miles in my body does not sound like fun, but let's see. So I entered the Chicago Marathon lottery. And I figured if the universe wanted me to run a marathon, I would get selected. And I had no clue about marathons. My knowledge was so limited. All I knew was I'm moving to Chicago. Chicago has a marathon. Let me try to see if if it's meant for me to run a marathon, that'll be the marathon I run because it's all just convenient. And I got into the lottery for the Chicago Marathon, and that was one of those like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing this now. Like I didn't think it would actually happen, but I guess we are doing it. And that summer of 2014 was I spent half of it training in Miami and then the other half training in Chicago. And I credit the part of Chicago with really helping me fall in love with running because there's something so magical about that lakefront trail, which is where I did a lot of my miles. And again, just seeing so many people out there running, no matter the time of day, no matter, like it's just seeing all kinds of people, all kinds of body types, all kinds of paces, people with their strollers, just like me, people with their dogs, like everything was just so, again, I look back at that time so fondly because it just felt like everyone was running and everyone was coming together to do it because it felt good. And at that time, I had no clue. Like, my understanding of pace, my understanding of even now, like, like BQs, OTQs, like any of those things, I didn't know what any of that was. We were all just running, and I was just trying to see what I could do. So, Chicago 2014, I had no clue what to expect. I set out with a goal. I was like, oh, I think I can do this in 4.5 hours. And that was based off of the training that I had done. I found some plan online, some, Runner's World marathon plan, and I followed it to the T. I didn't really understand speed work. I didn't get any of those, but I did all my mileage. Like if it said run 18 miles, I did 18 miles. If it said go run 7 miles, I did it. So mileage I got, but the speed workouts and like those nuances of training didn't really get. So I went into that race thinking, oh, if I can do this in 4.5 hours, that would be awesome. Like I'd be really, really proud of myself. Do it in 4.5 hours. I can't even tell you what I thought of during the race, but I can tell you what I thought afterwards, right? So I finished the race and I was elated because I ran it in 4:07. And I was like, holy smokes, I didn't know I could do that. Like for me, it was very much, I didn't know I can do that. Like this body that was not athletic, that did not growing up seeing running and seeing being athletic as something that was, I don't want to say that it wasn't desired. It just wasn't something that was shown in my household, right? So it felt like I was just in awe. I just couldn't believe that my body had done that. But as I crossed the finish line, my immediate thought was, this is just like having a baby. And I always say that the marathon, like this is how I describe it. Training for the marathon is like being pregnant, right? You've got like some good weeks, some bad weeks, lots of anticipation. Then running the marathon is like going through labor. It's kind of painful. You don't know what's happening. At least in my case, it was one of those things where I was like, am I human? Am I animal? I don't know what's going on right now. I'm just moving forward. And then being handed the medal at the end was like being handed my baby for the first time. Or I got that medal and I was like in awe. Again, just in complete awe. But that was my thought process, that the marathon was like having a baby. It is pregnancy, labor, and delivery all in one experience where you get the medal. And for some of us, right, you get the medal and you're like, this is wonderful. This is amazing. I'm never doing that again. With enough time, you might be like, oh, but that was such a great experience. Let me do it again, which is what happened to me. And that is why I have 2 children. I thought my first child was really challenging. And then she smiled at me and she called me mommy. And I was like, I think another child would be a great idea. And I feel like that's kind of the same with the marathon, where in the moment, you're wondering, what the heck am I doing? And then afterwards, when that nostalgia kind of hits, you're like, I think I can do that again. Or I want to try to do that again and see what else I'm capable of. And that's what happened for me, that I was like, you know what? 2014, that was amazing. I can't believe my body did that. I don't want to do it again. But again, enough time passed that I was like, I kind of want to do it again. And I want to see what else I can do. So in 2015, I signed up to run the Chicago Marathon again with a charity, but I think I lost my mind a little bit, because in 2015, I went, I did, I guess maybe it's just I don't do things in small doses. I dive in. So 2014, I ran Chicago. And again, I had that moment of like, I never want to do this again. But then very quickly, I was like, but you know what? I need to do this in my hometown. I need to go back to Miami and I need to run the Miami Marathon to say, like, I ran my hometown streets. So in 2015, I ran the Miami Marathon. And then I went back to Chicago. I was still living in Chicago, but went back in Chicago and ran a 50K. And then in the fall, I ran the Chicago Marathon and the Berlin Marathon. So I was truly drunk on running. I don't even know. I must have had a runner's high for all of 2015, because I don't even know how I did that, but I did. So 2014, I run my first marathon, and I'm just in awe of what my body can do. 2015, I do all these races because I just want to see what my body can do. I'm like, my gosh, my body is amazing. Like, how far can I push my body? 2016 was kind of a continuation of that, but now I was more focused on pacing, and I wanted to see how fast I could run. And so I ran Chicago in 2016, and that's where I set my marathon PR. That was the day where everything kind of came together. It's a unicorn of a day. If anyone has ever had one of those days, that you look back on it and you're like, I don't even know how it all came together, but it just did. Even though you do the training, you do the prep and all of that, there's still like this mystique around having the, perfect race day. So 2016, I had the best race day, which means that I wanted to go back in 2017 and have an even better race day. That was my goal. I was like, I want to beat 2016's time. Like, I saw what my body could do. I want to do better. So 2016, I get my PR. That's my personal record. And I'm so psyched to have gotten that. But it set me up for chasing times instead of chasing what can my body do. So in 2017, when I showed up to the Chicago Marathon, I had really high expectations for my time and for what I was going to do that day. And when I woke up on race day, I was really anxious. There was no explanation for it. There was nothing I could not pinpoint. And to this day, I cannot pinpoint what happened, what went wrong. Like, I had no clue. And that anxiety did not go away. I ended up having what I call my worst marathon experience at the 2017 Chicago Marathon. And this is one of my favorite stories, is that at mile 22, I was crying in a porta potty because I was just having such an awful day. And I texted my husband, letting him know that I was struggling. And his response was, "Ha, you paid to do this." And I was like, you know what? He's absolutely right. I did pay to do this. So I need to stop crying in a porta potty, get out there and finish this race. And I did finish the race. I had a side stitch that was so awful. I had to walk across the finish line. And if you didn't know this, like, apparently when you walk across the finish line, or at least in 2017, when you walk across the finish line, the medics come up to you to check and see if everything's okay. And I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. And I even told them, it's my ego that's bruised right now. I'm fine. And I finished that race and spent the next 3 months moping about how bad my race experience was, how upset I was that I didn't do better. And I spent some time just being angry at my body and my mind for not being able to pull it together on race day. And I had another person at that time gave me some tough love and was like, but you haven't stopped running. If you can't, things can't be that bad because you've kept running. And I said, you are absolutely right. And I need to get over this. Like I cannot let myself continue moping about this experience. So I vowed then and there to not let myself be defined by times, because defining myself by times made me lose my love and my joy. And that's why I talk about joy so much. It made me lose my joy for running. Running became a chore and something I had to do instead of what it was, which was this space where I discovered what I could do. So I started working with a run coach because I felt like I needed someone else to tell me what to do versus me trying to figure out my training. That was just how I tried to separate myself from the performance piece of running, was just saying, hey, you tell me what to run and I'll do that, instead of me coming up with a schedule for myself and like seeing what workouts. It helped create some separation for myself that allowed me to, I would say, allow me to heal from the disappointment of not meeting my time goal in 2017. So when I returned to Chicago in 2018, I swore it was going to be my last marathon. I told myself, I am never running another marathon again. This is the last one. I am coming here as my redemption race. Like, this is my race where I'm going to try to redefine my experience with marathoning. I want to make new memories on the Chicago Marathon course, so that 2017, I didn't want that to be the end of my story. But I swore in 2018 that I was done. I ran that race with the goal of feeling strong. So it wasn't about time. It wasn't about, trying to get a better time than the previous year or get a PR. It was all about, what do I need to do in order to feel strong? What does strong feel like? Those were the questions that I asked myself as I was running. Do I feel strong? Yes, keep going. If I don't feel strong, then okay, let's take a walk break and reset. So 2018, that marathon was the first time that I ran with a feeling as a goal. And it felt quite revolutionary, because when I finished, I had the biggest smile on my face because I felt strong. And that's something that no time on my watch or finishing time, it really didn't matter. Strong was a state of mind, not anything that could be like quantified by a specific time. So that started me on this journey of coming back to running as a joyful experience, and running as something that is greater than paces, running as this experience of seeing what my body could accomplish, seeing what my body was capable of, instead of defining it by, oh, if I'm not running faster, then I'm not progressing. And it's like, but wait, continuing to run, that is progress. Continuing to do so without an injury, that is progress. Continuing to do so while wanting to do it, that's progress as well. Like, that was something that I realized, that chasing paces led to burnout, whereas chasing a feeling led to potential and to possibility. So now it's the paces. Like I say, paces are important because, you need to know how to fuel yourself, right? Like, you need to know how long you're going to be out there so that you can properly fuel yourself. But they're not the thing that are going to define your experience. And they're not, and I can say this as someone with lots of races under her belt, that I don't even remember half of my finish times. I would say not even half. Like, maybe I remember my PRs because those numbers do stand out, but everything else, it's like I remember the experience of being at the race and not necessarily the specific finish time. And that's what it's about, right? Like, having a body that is healthy enough to complete the distance. Having a mind that believes you can go from start line to finish line. Those are the real flexes of running. So I've shifted from paces and then also just expanding. What does it mean to be a runner? What does it mean to set a personal record at a race? And when did we get to this point in running where a PR could only be a time, right? When can it be that? And that big aha moment happened for me with I ran the London Marathon in 2023. And prior to that, we had been going through a big home repair renovation that was just a soul crushing experience. And it was so challenging on my family. And I remember being in London right before the shakeout run and sitting down on some steps and recording this video of myself, just saying, hey, the PR this year is surviving. That's the personal record. The PR is having made it to London and having been able to be here to run this race. That's the PR. So now for me, it's that reframe of what else can we PR in? What else is the accomplishment in this race that has nothing to do with time and everything to do with the journey and how you've shown up for yourself over the journey? So yeah, so when it comes to the paces, paces and PRs, it's how can we expand what those things mean for us? Instead of it being a black and white thing, can we see it as being indicative of longevity in sport, being indicative of how well we show up in this space and how much we invite others to come to running as well? So the motivation now is how much joy can I have pushing my body to do these things, because there will come a day that I won't be able to do these things. And I don't know if it's because in general I'm getting older and mortality is something that is more present for me, but it's this idea that start lines aren't guaranteed and finish lines aren't either. So how can we just show up today, give it our best today, and be proud of that, and then let it go? And if we get tomorrow, then how can we show up tomorrow and give it our best tomorrow? And same thing, be in that experience, but then let it go. And if we get another day, how can we just continue doing that every day? Every day. And if we happen to have a race that day, then awesome. How can we celebrate ourselves for making it to that point, for having a body? Again, I feel like a broken record here, but it's like, how can we celebrate having a body that's able to do the thing that we want to do, that we believe we can do? Because it's not guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed, right? Like your start line isn't guaranteed. Your finish line isn't guaranteed. Heck, even the training may not be guaranteed, right? Like life happens. Running is what we're doing while life is happening. And how can we just show up and give it our best every time that we get the opportunity to show up?
Over this past summer, training for the 2025 Chicago Marathon in her hometown of Miami, Stephanie once again focused on showing up and giving her best in the face of whatever challenges she came up against. And she found new motivations to get her through the marathon.
So Chicago, oh my gosh, running in Miami is so challenging. And the hotter it got, the more I doubted my ability to run a marathon. And it became so bad for me, and by bad, I just mean that the negative self-talk was really, really powerful. When it's Steph against the Heat is going to win all the time. It's the Heat's going to win. And I realized probably halfway through my training that if I was going to successfully train for Chicago, I needed to change how I was training. So I did a lot of treadmill runs. I split my long runs in two. So I would run, I would run a longer run on Saturday and then a shorter but long run on Sunday on a treadmill. So I would do one run outside because I still wanted to be acclimated to running outside because we never know what the weather is going to be in Chicago. And it might be warm, it might be cold, it might be all these things. So I still got some running outside, but then that second run was always done on a treadmill. And every time I ran on a treadmill, it renewed my faith in my ability. And I realized, like, oh, it's actually running outside is what's making me think I can't run. But when I run on a treadmill, I feel powerful and I can run. So those treadmill runs saved me. And I had this realization, or for me, like this reframe. We often hear people say, oh, it's the dread mill. And over the course of training for Chicago, I realized it's not a treadmill. To have access to a treadmill is actually a privilege. Not a lot of people have access to a treadmill. And once I started seeing it as, oh, it's a privilege to run on a treadmill, it's a privilege to have access to a treadmill, I started to enjoy running on the treadmill so much more. It became almost like a game for me of like, all right, let's see what we can do here. And can we, move the speed, and can we play with inclines, and can we just, again, just have more fun with it. So going into Chicago, I guess for me, I can say I never doubt that I'm going to finish a race. What I question is what it's going to take for me to get from start line to finish line. I know that if I can make it to the start line, I'm going to make it to the finish line. I just don't know what's going to transpire in that period of time. No way. So starting Chicago, I felt ready, and I felt ready, maybe not for what most people feel ready to race. I felt ready to race because I was really ready to rest. Like that was what got me through Chicago, was thinking about sleeping in on the Monday afterwards. Like that was it. Like I just thought, once I get this race done, I can sleep in and I can take a break from running. I was really, really looking forward to recovering from Chicago. That's what got me excited about running Chicago, because you spend such a, in your training cycle, a long time being very disciplined about getting your runs in and, trying to fit everything in and making sure you're eating enough and all. There's so much that changes in your life when you're training for a marathon that I was ready to just be lazy and not a responsible runner. Like that was really what motivated me. So starting the Chicago Marathon, I kept thinking, I have 26.2 miles until I can get back to my bed. Like that was the thought process. And as I was running the race, I love Chicago because there's so many spectators. You're running again with thousands of runners, and it's all kinds of people from all backgrounds. We're all trying to do the exact same thing. We're all trying to go from start line to finish line. And to me, there's something so just serendipitous about these, I think there was 54,000 people who finished Chicago, something like that. But it's so magical to think of 54,000 different stories all converging in this one moment. On this one day, we're all walking the same path. So we come from all over the world, but for this one moment in time, we're all together. And that's where I'm running and I'm like, this is just amazing. Like it was almost like an out of body experience of like, we're here, we're doing it. We're all doing this marathon. And I was feeling okay until mile 18 of the race, and my stomach did just not agree with whatever was going on. So I say that I have PR'd in porta potty experiences where, at Chicago, I cried in a porta potty, and at Chicago, I threw up in a porta potty. Like that feels like these bookend experiences for me. And that's what happened to me this year, where it's just, I was so sick to my stomach. I went to a porta potty and I threw up, and I came out and I was like, well, there goes whatever plan I had for today. but that's okay. And I kept repeating to myself, training prepared me to finish. Training prepared me to finish. It didn't prepare me to finish in a specific time. Like, that's not guaranteed. A time is never guaranteed because you have no clue what body and what mind you're going to wake up to on race day. But training prepares you to finish the race. So I kept telling myself that training has prepared me to finish. No matter what happens, it doesn't matter what it looks like as long as it gets done. So I'm walking, my stomach is like, doesn't know if it's okay, not okay, but I'm smiling the entire time because I'm like, you know what? I'm still here. And it's not that I'm injured. It's not like mentally, I'm fine. It's just, it happens to be that today is a day where my stomach is not going to agree with what I'm trying to make it do. And that's okay. So telling myself that over and over again, training prepared me to finish, is what helped me embrace this year's Chicago experience. So it may not be and this has kind of been my thought process since, right? It may not have been the race that I wanted or the race that I prepared for, but it was the race that I needed. And each race has a lesson or it has something to teach me. And if I can stay open to being a student of the distance, then I can stay open to perhaps doing it again. And that's kind of been my thought process this past week of, okay, what are the lessons of this race? And then how can I take these lessons moving forward? And also, hey, a finish is a finish, right? Regardless of what it looks like, a finish is a finish. And I'm never going to take having a body that can finish for granted.
I'm never going to take having a body that can finish for granted. Such an important perspective to come back to. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for all of your shared wisdom and for coming on the podcast and sharing your incredible running journey. I really appreciate it. Now, I know you, like me, are going to want to keep up with Stephanie, so look to the show notes. I will provide links to how you can do that, including following Stephanie on Instagram and also how to find her podcast, The Runner's Roundtable. And that is going to do it for me for this episode. Signing off for now, this is Cherie Louise Turner. I'm the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. And until next Tuesday, when I will be back with a new episode, I do wish you healthy, joyful, gratitude-filled strides forward. Women's Running. Women's Running Stories.